Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening for our Parents and Supporters webinar. It's fantastic that you have joined us here this evening at Royal Holloway, University of London. My name is James Casey. I'm a Schools and Colleges Liaison Officer here at Royal Holloway. So my job entails speaking to a lot of parents and their students, of course, as well, all about that applying to university process. I also used to be a student at Royal Holloway, so I studied drama and theatre studies for 4 years, so quite a long time here at Royal Holloway in a student context as well. I'm also joined by two very fantastic people to have here with us on the panel. Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you, James. My name is Caroline. I'm the Head of International Student Recruitment, so I look after all of our international students from around the world. We have students from 125 different countries, and it's my team's role to help students feel aware, understand what life is going to be like, helping things like visas, funding, and kind of supporting along the way until they are here at Royal Holloway.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caroline. And Marcio, would you to introduce yourself as well?
Marcia, I'm a third-year Laws Criminology student, and I'm also student ambassador, so I'll be here to answer questions that you guys have as well.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So yeah, we're really quite lucky to be joined by people that hopefully will be able to give you a broad overview of Royal Holloway tonight, not only from a UK perspective, but also from that international perspective as well. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you both for introducing yourself. We are going to get started then straight away. Hopefully you can all hear us at the moment. I am just going to put a quick poll out to make sure that you can hear us okay. So if you wouldn't mind just answering the poll to make sure that our microphones are all working okay this evening, that would be fantastic. Great stuff. Okay, that looks like it's 100% yes. So hopefully that means everyone can hear us okay. So yeah, we're going to be covering a few different sections this evening. Hopefully that will be really useful for you all to hear and learn about with all things Royal Holloway. Big thing to note at this point is that we will be recording this evening's session. So if you do have anything that you want to come back to return to at a later date, I will be uploading it to our Royal Holloway Schools YouTube channel. So if you would like to catch up on it after the session, absolutely you can do. Obviously, there is also a chat function as well. So please do let us know if you have any questions as the session goes on. Thank you to those of you that have already submitted some questions to us. We will be finishing off with a question and answer session at the end of the hour, but also you can, of course, submit any questions along the way, should you have any pop up. As a little introduction, Royal Holloway is a top 30 university in the UK, and we're regularly voted as one of the most beautiful campuses, not only in the UK, but also around the world as well. You can see here a wonderful picture of our Emily Wilding Davison library building, opened in 2017 and has over 1,000 study spaces for our students to study in. Many of you might also know our wonderful iconic Victorian Founders building. It does often pop up in quite a lot of filming. We have recently just been in the most recent series of The Crown, for instance, and also before that Netflix is You as well. If anyone has seen You, we are that university building used for those series. Beyond that, you can see the rest of our campus on our map here. We are a lovely green leafy campus, a real mix of accommodation, which we're going to come on to quite a bit in this session later on. Academic buildings, of course, where students actually learn and study in our lecture theatres, our performance spaces, our labs, things like that. So yeah, we can go over them a little bit later on as well. And then finally, our social spaces. So of course, one of the big reasons why students choose to go to university is, of course, those social spaces. We have a really nice mix of them on campus. Our sports centre that you can probably see in the bottom right-hand corner there is just one of them. But also our hub of cafes and restaurants more centrally on campus, whilst also things like our student union as well. So yeah, a really nice fun mix on our campus. The 4 key areas that we are going to be focusing on in this evening's session. First and foremost, UCAS. Some of you might have heard of what UCAS is. Hopefully some of you, I can see most of you will be with us for students applying for the 2024 entry. Some of you will probably therefore have encountered UCAS with your students already as well. Student finance, particularly an important topic in the current climate in the UK. Absolutely. Hopefully we can equip you with all the really important facts that you have to know about the student finance system in the UK. Student life and transition. How can we actually best support your student in their journey to life at Royal Holloway? That transition is, of course, a big one in life. So hopefully I can give you some guidance on some of the support that we do offer our students. And then finally, Caroline is going to lead a lovely section specifically for those joining us from the international background tonight as well, aka what sort of dedicated support do we have for our international students joining us. Fantastic. So we're going to go straight in with section 1, which is going to be all about UCAS. UCAS stands for the University and Colleges Admissions Service. Essentially, it was founded in 1992, and it has been the way of applying to a UK university for just over the last 30 years now. As I said, it's something that if students do apply in the UK, they will pretty much have to encounter to go to university in the UK. It has been the way of searching, applying, and then finally actually confirming that place at universities in the UK. Some of you will be familiar with this screen. So it is actually the UCAS search tool where students can browse essentially all the different courses that are available to them. You can just see some examples on the left there of our history related courses at Royal Holloway. You can also do this on the phone as well. It's quite straightforward, really sort of the best place to go out and search some of the courses that students have available to them. In terms of that choice, the really big thing, the sort of big factors to consider in choosing a university and a course, I like to use a college structure, is what I like to call it. So that stands for course. So what does the course actually look like? O for opportunity. What opportunities can a university offer them, not only academically, but socially and professionally as well? Location, how important is that to them? Are they someone that would much prefer living in a city-based location or potentially a campus-based university setting as well? That's of course what we are here at Royal Holloway. League tables, is that something that really matters to them? Do they want to be going somewhere that is in the top 5 globally for that course? Or are they more specifically thinking wider than that? Where does the university as a whole sit within league tables as well? Entry requirements, making sure that is attainable for the student. Gut, arguably the most important one, actually making sure that that gut feeling about that university and that course is 100% the right thing for them to choose to do and to go and study at for potentially 3 years of their life. And then finally, that E for educational style. Is it a more practical based course, a theory based course? Is there more written assessment or more performance based assessment, for instance, things like that? So of course, all things can come under consideration. I like to know that as the college structure. So hopefully that's a good way of thinking about supporting your student as they choose university, or potentially in the coming months as they start to confirm their firm and insurance choices for university, essentially their top choice and their second slightly safer choice as well. My big tips here, start early if you haven't obviously gone through that process already. Make sure you can order or download any prospectuses. Pretty much all universities will have prospectuses on their website, so actually do check them out. And I really can't emphasize this one enough, definitely visit campus. So go along, get a vibe, test that gut feeling for what that university feels like, ask lots of questions, and hopefully you get a really good gut feeling about the university that you are potentially supporting your student to apply for. I've obviously spoken a little bit about the differences in terms of the people joining us this evening. For those with a 2024 entrance for their student, this is pretty much your timeline now until the student starts at university this September. Obviously, the general application deadline has now passed. That was the end of January. We're now about to get into the season, that second point along there, for applying to student finance for UK students. It hasn't quite opened yet. It hopefully will be opening in the next few weeks. Last year it was just at the end of February. The year before that it was the start of March. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. We're going to be coming on to student finance a little bit later in the session. After that, the deadline for universities to respond with any offers is the 16th of May. So that's the offers that a university will come back to the student to. From that point, the student's deadline for choosing their firm or insurance choices is actually the 6th of June. So there is a bit of time there. Before then, eventually everything will then be confirmed on results day in summer 2024. Hopefully, all things going well, that will mean that the student can start at their dream university come this September. I did mention a little bit there about the different types of university offers. Generally, there are 3 different types of offer. The conditional based offer, that is when a university will offer a student a place based upon certain conditions. For instance, if they have to achieve a certain entry grade to be able to get into a course, maybe potentially even a specific subject. Another type is the unconditional offer. Much sort of more rare than a conditional based offer, but essentially that will mean a university is asking the student to come regardless of any conditions. So they have that guaranteed place at the university if they want it. And then finally, as said, hopefully much rarer, is an unsuccessful based offer. So yeah, unfortunately the student would not have been successful with their application. All this, as I said, will be confirmed. The deadline for universities to get back to students is the 8th of May deadline. When we eventually then get to results day, generally 3 different things could happen. A student, could be accepted into their firm choice. So hopefully that top choice that they have then chosen to go to. They could also get accepted into their insurance choice if they didn't get into that firm choice. Potentially they could even choose to go to their insurance choice over their firm choice. Or finally, they could enter a system called clearing. Clearing often has a big scary name. Personally, I like to think of it as a really sort of freeing system that hopefully can help students to arrive at decisions that hopefully they might not have seen available before to them. So they will be accepted into an alternative course in university should they essentially choose to still be going to university. There's lots of places on offer in clearing. This year just gone was, I believe, the most places available in clearing on record. So there are lots of really good opportunities out there for students should they find themselves not getting into their firm or insurance-based choices. Okay, so that's on the 2024 side of things. If you do have a student entering for this September, I will quickly touch on if you are joining us this evening for a student applying for next year. The key things to be of note, obviously your student will be currently in year 12. That means essentially they can start applying for, opening for registration with UCAS in May this year. Hopefully around that time will be also when they start researching those universities, those courses, going along to those open days. Most universities will have summer open days as well, so it's definitely a really good time to go and check out universities in person. September 2024 is then the point when UCAS opens, so applications can be sent. There is specific early deadlines for the options listed on the timeline, so medicine, veterinary, dentistry, or Oxford or Cambridge. However, the general application deadline is usually mid to late January. As we've just seen, this year it was the 31st of January. So that is always the time generally that you can leave it to apply for UCAS. My top tip though, if you can be sort of quicker on that, I always think that can put you in a better position. Not only for yourself, so hopefully that the student can feel a little bit more rest assured about the decisions that they are making. But of course, it's always going to be helpful if you can get your applications in earlier rather than later. Again, lots of schools or colleges do have internal deadlines as well that students will have to meet. So yeah, hope that's a little bit of context for those of you joining us for next year's entrance as well. Fantastic. So going into a bit more depth around student finance, I should say at this point, I am not in any in any way an advocate for the student finance system in the UK. I have not been told or anything to advocate for the system. What I'm going to be telling you now is just a little bit how the system works, and hopefully leaving you knowing the facts about how the UK student finance system works for UK home students. So that really is the big thing to highlight here. The information I'm about to give you is specifically for UK home students. So what is student finance? Fundamentally, it is government funding that allows students from any financial background to access university. That is the sort of key idea behind it. It's managed by the Student Loan Company and by Student Finance England. So the information I'm going to be giving you here is most relevant for English-based universities, as we are here at Royal Holloway. And essentially, a student then applies for student finance before they start each year of their degree. So not only before they actually start university as a whole, but also in each year of their degree, they will have to apply for student finance a few months ahead of the start of that year. To sort of understand how university costs can be split, I've split this into two separate categories, one being the tuition fees and one being the everyday spending. Specifically on the tuition fee side of things, that essentially means that is the cost of studying at their chosen institution. Tuition fees will vary depending on where they're from and where they are studying, and universities in the UK can charge home students up to a maximum of £9,250 per year. To cover this cost, there is a tuition fee loan that can be applied to through the government. I'm going to give you information on that in just a moment. But also scholarships and bursaries. I'm aware we've had a few questions around that for this evening's session. Hopefully we can give you some good information on scholarships and bursaries as well. Or of course, if it is an option available to you, you can of course help to support your student in privately owned funding your tuition fees as well. Specifically on the tuition fee loan, it is a loan that covers the full cost of the tuition fees. It's paid directly by the student loan company to the university, so it never goes to the student itself, it goes directly to the institution they are studying at, and it's not based on any household income. So everyone who applies will get the same amount to go to the university. On the everyday spending side of things, slightly different obviously to that tuition fee side. Essentially that is everything else that as a student they might be paying their money on. Again, just some examples are there on the screen. It could be, of course, accommodation. That's going to be a big element of it, but also things like the social life, the social aspect of university, travel, particularly if they are a student thinking about going to a city-based university. That might be something to really consider. Again, if their accommodation is on one side of the city and their academic buildings are on the other side, public transport will, of course, be a factor to think about. To cover the everyday spending, there is a different type of loan available, and that's known as the maintenance loan. There is also extra support for students with disabilities or carers experience, bursaries and scholarships again, and of course, if it is an option to you, privately owned funding as well. Specifically on the maintenance loan, it does differ depending on the student situation, so that is where it's different to a tuition fee loan. So it could be, for instance, where you're from, where you're studying. As an example, because we are a University of London institution here at Royal Holloway, our students are eligible for the London weighting on top of their maintenance loan. Essentially, because London is more expensive, the government gives students that higher London rate. It could also be dependent on whether they are still living at home whilst they study, if they're a commuting student. And of course, the big factor here is that it will be partly based on your household income. I'm going to go through that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But it is paid directly to the student 3 times a year, generally at the start of each academic term, so September, January, and April. Specifically on the household income effects, big thing to note here, this is for entrants just announced. These figures are just announced by the Student Finance Company for students applying for this September. You can sort of see from this table, if you're from a lower household income background, you will be eligible for a higher amount of maintenance loan. Flipping that on its head, if you are from a higher household income background, the student will be eligible for a lower amount of maintenance loan. Again, other factors at play there, if they're studying in London, outside of London, or of course if they are staying at home and commuting to their university as they are a student. All these different factors will of course impact the amount that the student will be eligible for in their maintenance loan. If you want to check out your specific individual circumstances, at the bottom of the screen there you can see the student finance calculator on the gov.uk website. I definitely recommend going through to that. There's probably about 6 or 7 questions that you have to answer, and then you'll be able to see how much you as a student or your student that you are looking for will be eligible for. I spoke a little bit about the other support available to our students. The DSA, Disabled Student Allowance, it's a fantastic extra mechanism of support for students who are eligible for it. Travel grants, specifically for those who might be doing years abroad during their studies, and dependents and childcare grants as well. Specifically on the DSA, the Disabled Student Allowance, some of the examples that could make the student applicable for that extra funding are on the screen. This is by far means not the only conditions that can make a student eligible for it. There is many more as well. I definitely recommend doing a little bit more research on it if you think your student might be able to apply for this extra funding. And finally, thinking about that application process, the key thing for students to know is that it is an online process, and applications do open around sort of late February, early March, as I said earlier, so definitely do start early. They will not need a confirmed place at university. They can change details later on, obviously depending on what happens on results day as well. And essentially, the student can apply for the tuition fee loan, the maintenance loan, or both. It's pretty much up to the student what they apply for. You can apply for either of them or both of them, or nothing at all, if of course that is an option available to the student. The process is generally 6 stages long. There is a section for the parents or carers to fill in on things like their taxable income and their national insurance number. Apart from that, it will then be over to the student to fill in their university and course details, their bank details, where they want the maintenance loan to go through. Once all that is approved, they will then be sent a loan declaration. They will have to sign and return that form, and hopefully, all things going well, tuition fees will be paid directly to the university when they enrol on their course, and then students will also receive their maintenance loan as well. Just quickly on the repayment system, just to bear in mind how the repayments actually work once they finish. So students do not restart repaying their student loan until the April after they graduate. Their repayments will be based on how much they earn and essentially come out of your paycheck a bit like a tax. And eventually, after 40 years, any remaining debt at that point is then wiped. The threshold currently for repaying is set at £25,000 per year, which is equivalent to those 2 figures just below by month and by week. What they repay is 9% of whatever they are over that threshold. I should say at this point, if their income drops below this at any point, they stop making any repayments. So at any point during that 40 years, if they drop below £25,000 in their income, they will not have to repay, they will not have to repay any bit of their student loan at that point. As an example, here we have Beth. So Beth earns £30,000 a year, or £2,500 per month. That means that Beth is £417 over the threshold. So 9% of £417 is £37.53 per month. So Beth repays that £37.53 per month. Hopefully that sort of indicates it is quite a manageable amount that a student will repay. It's not something they have to repay all at once, really super quick after they graduate. I like to think of mine a little bit like a gym subscription. So hopefully, again, it's a nice way of thinking about the repayment of that student loan over that course of time. On interest as well, interest is charged on the loan until it is repaid. Currently, it's set at 5.1%, which is in line with the UK Retail Price Index. Essentially, that is updated once a year in September from the RPI from March of that year. Again, all of this is set in line with the government. So this is not something that the student finance system does. It's essentially in line with the UK Retail Price Index. And I spoke a little bit about that extra support through scholarships and bursaries. Scholarships are based upon academic excellence or ability in other areas, for instance, sport or music, but they are competitive. So they will be applying to a set number of awards against other students. Bursaries, on the other hand, they are awarded on personal circumstances. For instance, household income. Usually everyone who is eligible to receive the award will receive it. That's the difference compared to scholarships. Some scholarship examples that we have here at Royal Holloway, I won't go through every single one of them. One of our most popular ones is the Rising Star Scholarship. That is essentially a full tuition fee reduction for 3 years for UK home students, which of course is quite a lot of money. That can be dependent upon grades achieved at A-level or BTEC, including any contextual offers. And of course, an ability to demonstrate leadership skills. So AKA, they are that rising star of the future. They would be more than welcome to apply for that scholarship. What you might also tend to see, some of them are based upon that widening access criteria. So this Santander Widening Access Scholarship is a cash award of £2,400 in the first year of study and available for first year UK home students doing any undergraduate degree from a group underrepresented in higher education. Again, hopefully to be that extra enticement for that student to come and study that course with us at Royal Holloway. You'll also tend to see there are some that are specific for courses. So we do have dedicated ones for things around physics, music, English as well, or some of them could be totally applicable for any course as well. I definitely recommend going away and doing your research if you are interested in anything scholarships. They are really, really good ways of reducing that cost burden of university. On the bursary side of things, again, some examples we just have here at Royal Holloway. You can see there are ones available based upon household income, potentially up to £1,500 in each year of their study. Or it could also be based upon things like if the student is a care leaver as well, or access entry in there as well. We do have a wide range of bursaries. Again, definitely recommend checking out our website if you'd like to hear about any more of our scholarships or our bursaries. Just finally on the student finance then, we do have extra support available to students in the form of a hardship fund. So that is available to eligible students who are suffering from emergency financial hardship. Again, that also can come through short-term loan support, again, to students finding themselves in that emergency financial difficulty. And there is also dedicated overseas student support as well, which hopefully that Caroline can cover a little bit later on in her section as well. The other ways to manage your money, I would definitely recommend to students thinking about part-time jobs. They are fantastic ways of reducing that cost burden of university, as I said, but also sometimes just putting that extra bit of cash in their pocket. I had a job all the way through my studies at Royal Holloway. Our lovely little union shop that you can see a picture of on the right-hand side there, that's also where I worked. So I loved working in that shop. It was also a social thing, not just that financial thing as well. There's obviously lots of student discounts available to out there for students through things like uni days, totem beans. There's some really good websites providing discounts to students. Bank accounts as well. Lots of banks do have dedicated student bank accounts, budgeting apps, travel cards, things like rail discounts. There's a whole host of stuff out there. Definitely recommend students thinking about to just support them with that financial aspect of university. Okay, fantastic. So last bit of section for me, just thinking about that sort of student life and transition. Of course, going to university can be quite a transformative thing in a student's life. I remember going through it myself. Of course, you know, it's a big time in your life where you might be making that first independent jump to living on your own, looking after yourself, cleaning for yourself, cooking for yourself. There is that big jump. We do have some really good support mechanisms in place for our students at Royal Holloway. These are just some of them coming onto our screen now. Every student at Royal Holloway does have a dedicated personal tutor. So if they do have any situation that they need advice academically or as well, they are able to go to their personal tutor. CDAS, which stands for the Centre of Academic Development. That is a fantastic department that we have, essentially for students who want that extra bit of academic support. It could be writing skills, research skills. It was something that I was really able to make the most of as a student. Again, something very unique to Royal Holloway that not all universities have, having that dedicated place to go and get that sort of generic academic advice and support. Our security team as well, so we have a 24/7 security team on our campus. Finance, hopefully we've seen again some of the really good finance support that we have here available to students as part of our student finance support team. Chaplaincy, we have a multi-faith chaplaincy at Royal Holloway. They put on some fantastic, really fun events for students around campus as well. And I always, again, if it's something that interests the student, encourage them to get involved in. Wellbeing, we do have a dedicated wellbeing team here at Royal Holloway and counselling service as well. The other thing I will note about at this point, we have a really good disability and neurodiversity support team as well. Again, definitely recommend students getting in touch even before they start with us at Royal Holloway. If you are someone who is supporting a student who might be joining us this September 2024, hopefully it will be linked into their UCAS application. So we may be able to reach out to them directly first, but otherwise I definitely recommend getting in touch with them to see if there is anything that we can put in place to support them in that transition to university as well. Student-led initiatives, we have just over 130 different clubs and societies at Royal Holloway. Anything sports related, ideas related, political ideologies, hobbies, there's a whole host of things there that are specifically student-led schemes. Again, 130 different clubs and societies. There is so much to get involved in as a student at Royal Holloway. And then finally, the residential support as well. So it could mean things like early access to our accommodation. We can do tours just like that for students that might want that extra reassurance. There's some really good support mechanisms in place. We have a whole life support team as well available to students. So if they do find themselves wanting that extra support when they are a student living in our accommodation, they're more than welcome to access it. Touching on a little bit on that accommodation, what options do we have available to students? These are just some pictures of some of the accommodations that we have. You can actually live in Founders Building, which is something I always find amazing. Students can actually live in a castle for a year. It feels really, really cool. But also there is more modern accommodation as well. So George Eliot is our most recently added accommodation, finished in 2017, which is a bit like townhouse style student village sort of feel and vibe. Lots of other things as well. Personally, when I was a student, I lived in Wedderburn, which is that one in the bottom right hand corner there. I loved it. Really nice sort of general sort of in the middle probably accommodation. I was able to have an ensuite, which is something that I was sort of really important to me, but I was also still self-catered as well. So that meant that I could cook for myself. Again, something else to think about. Does the student want to be catered? So have all their food cooked for them in a canteen, or would they like that independence of having that self-catered facility where they can go and cook for themselves? Things like that, single bed, double bed, all things like that obviously can come into play when thinking about accommodation. Specifically for those of you that are joining us with students joining us this September, this is the key details that you need to know about accommodation. We haven't yet opened our accommodation applications yet, but they will be opening hopefully in the next few weeks. So definitely the deadline is in June. So once that application portal has opened, I definitely recommend applying to our accommodation if you are supporting a student that has that firm choice Royal Holloway decision. Again, at that point, you will be receiving an email from us directly anyhow. If you're someone who has Royal Holloway as your insurance choice, I'd probably say wait until it changes the firm. At that point, it could obviously be results day. The guarantee that we do have is that if you firm Royal Holloway as your choice, we guarantee you accommodation in your first year. If you, of course, submit an application for accommodation by the deadline in June. There is payment, so that is a termly instalments, and there is a £300 prepayment online during the contract acceptance process. And as I said, there is some extra support for accommodation upon request. For instance, that pre-arrival visit, also allowance for guide dogs, and also things like recommendations for second and third year as well, when students typically go out to live in the local areas. Okay, fantastic. So I think that's everything that I've covered from the UK home perspective for now. It's at this point that I'd love to welcome Caroline back to join us. Caroline, I'm happy to slip through the slides when you tell me to do so. But yeah, for now, I'll hand you back to Caroline.
Thank you, James. So good evening, everybody, or it might be morning, afternoon, wherever you are around the world. Can I just, by using the chat, just so I know how much time to spend, can you just let me know if you are interested in the information for international students? So if you're kind of currently living outside of the UK, and just out of my interest, where you're from as well, because we travel a lot and it's always nice to know kind of where our audiences are. And if I don't see too many responses in the chat, I will try and keep it a little bit shorter, because I know that a lot of you are kind of looking for your sons and daughters kind of based in the UK. But moving on, I will talk a little bit about the support that we provide to our international students, and that's from the beginning, whether it's an application, whether it's we meet students in country, they leave their details on our web form asking for more information. So as soon as you start interacting with us at Royal Holloway, we have, this is our lovely team. We have specialists and kind of staff who look after different regions. So we're all kind of split into different regions that we kind of look after. And the slides have gone, thank you. And that means that, as I mentioned, you have specialists who know different countries, know the education systems, know maybe the funding situations over there as well, and can provide that tailored information to our students. For some countries, students for undergraduate might want to do a pathway programme. That's if in the country the education system doesn't match up to finishing at 18 years old like our A-levels do in the UK. But there are many countries where you can also come straight into year one, so do kind of consider that for your students if they are able to go into year one straight away, or if they need to do a foundation course. We provide all sorts of, you can request meetings with us. We provide international webinars throughout the year. I mentioned we're traveling quite a lot as well. So I'm off to Cyprus tomorrow. One of my colleagues is off to the Middle East. We have Akhil in India right now, and Stella is off to China in 2 weeks. So there's lots of us. We're out of the office a lot, and I can, after this, I'll quickly put the link in the chat of where you can find us and where we'll be throughout the world. Sorry, next slide, please. And some of the things that we can help with, kind of visas questions, always important, always a very busy time once students have applied, and then once they want to get prepared before becoming what's called, well, once you're an unconditional student, which I'll explain on the next slide of when you start thinking about getting your visa, but it's always good to know what happens before that. Different companies I mentioned and different countries have different loan systems. So James talked a lot about the UK system and how our government provides loans. Some countries have their own loan system as well. Some countries in Europe, some of the Scandinavian countries, the US, and some countries have their own system that's slightly different, but with kind of sponsor companies as well, so kind of in the Middle East or in Latin America. We always provide a lot of information over summer in pre-departure webinars. Now that's for students, well, for anyone, but especially for students thinking of moving country, kind of coming to the UK. We understand going to university is a really big decision, whether it's for you want your masters, for the 3-year undergrads, and we know that you want to support your students as much as you can. We have students who have moved down the road and are very conscious and have very concerns. So we understand students moving from maybe 20-hour flight away. There might be 2 connections. Then, English isn't often their first language. We know that it's a big decision, and we are used to having international students from around the world and providing that support that students need so that they feel comfortable and ready to settle and succeed at university. So lots of different information throughout the summer so that students feel welcome. And of course, that's for UK students as well as international students. And there's lots of things, kind of airport pickups, how to get to campus, telling them about kind of British culture and getting through the airport and the kind of the craziness of the London Underground system and things like that. So lots of information on travel and settling in and British culture. And then once students are here with us in September, there's a range of orientation and welcome events, again, for UK and for international students, to help students meet people, kind of mix. It might be the sports freshers fairs or societies, but to meet people with, well, with same interests, with different interests, from people from maybe the same country, or they want to mix and meet people from all around the world. Lots of different events there just to help students meet people and make friends. Next slide, please. And then I won't spend too much time on this slide because I don't think I've got too many international families in the audience here, but it's just to advise, and there's lots of information on our webpage. I will also put a link in the chat shortly, but just to advise you, students get what's called a CAS number. You can see there, CAS, it's a confirmation acceptance of studies. You have to have that before you can apply for a visa, and you only get that once the student has an unconditional offer, whether it's undergraduate level or postgraduate level. An undergraduate offer means there are no conditions still to meet. So they have their English language test if required, they have their final transcripts and have met our grades, and everything is in the personal statement, the reference, things like that. So once you're unconditional, which means you are coming to the university. So once a student is unconditional, they will be sent what's called a pre-CAS questionnaire by our admissions team. We encourage students to answer that as quickly as possible, but as thoroughly. You don't want to get it wrong and then have delays in your visas. And then our admissions team will speak through the whole process from then on in. And like I say, there's lots of information online and that will be emailed as well. One thing I would just always say to students throughout the whole experience is check your emails, check your junk emails. If anything changes on contact details, let us know as well, because yeah, we don't want the visa to be stressful, but sometimes it can take a few months. So we would like to start as early as possible. Next slide, please. And then lastly, just a little bit on university life. James has really covered this anyway, and it's very similar for international students, UK students. As I mentioned, students are moving away from home for the first time, independent living. But what is so nice about going to university is that everyone helps everyone. You know, everyone is in the same boat, that they have moved away. They might be cooking for the first time, managing money for the first time, or sometimes there are students who have lived abroad before, who have left school or a job a few years before and have a bit more life experience, and everyone helps everyone. James mentioned meeting people from around the world. I said we have 125 different nationalities in our student body, so it's a lovely experience. I remember trying to learn Spanish in my few years at university. I loved trying all the different international food, made friends with all the international students straight away, thinking I knew there was going to be better food options there. And it's just a really nice way, like I say, for people to get to know both kind of socially, but also in the classroom. I did politics and international relations, and I learned so much from students from around the world, as much as, you know, the academics and obviously the theory and things, but there's so many different benefits to having kind of a mix of international students and students from different backgrounds around you, both socially and kind of learning in your subjects as well. And then there are some extra wellbeing and support classes and facilities for international students. So I mentioned that the English language, there's extra classes there for students that feel they need it. We understand that students have come from different backgrounds and different qualifications, and they might not all be the same as the UK style of essay writing. So there's lots of different support there. There's finance support. We have scholarships for international students. James covered some, and some of those will be relevant as well, some of the department scholarships, but I urge you to go onto the website, use the filters and see what's available. And a range of other support during, as I mentioned, during the summer, before students get here, but also once they have started with us and throughout their 3 years, 4 years, 1 year if they're masters, kind of however long they are staying with us at Royal Holloway. I think that's me done.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully that was a really sort of useful guide for those joining us from that international perspective this evening. If you do have any more further questions for us, please absolutely do use the question or chat function this evening so that we can answer some of these for you. I can see we've had a few come in already, which is fantastic. Also, if you do want to find out more, here hopefully are some really useful links for you to follow. Various different websites externally, they're available for you as parents or to your students as well. And of course, our wonderful website here at Royal Holloway as well. Hopefully you can find some really good specific things available related to us. You can even chat to current students or staff as well if you do have any more of those burning questions. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to move on to the Q&A section for this evening's session. Give me just 1 second as I stop sharing our screen. There we go. So yeah, Marcia, you are back on as well. Fantastic. Just as a quick reminder, Marcia, do you want to tell us which course you study, what year you are in, and any sort of wonderful facts that you maybe have about yourself as well? So yeah, over to you.
So I'm a third year laws criminology student. So I've been here 3 years. I also do, I'm the president of Rounders, and last year I did cheerleading, so I do a bit of sports on the side. And I know there's a range of societies as well where a lot of people could join. So if you guys have any questions about anything, my first year I also lived in Runnymede 1, so accommodation, which it was ensuite, single bed. So there's other options such as George Eliot, where we spoke about it, was a bit one of our newest accommodation, but because I was trying to see how I was going to budget and how I was going to save money, I chose Runnymede because single bed, so you do pay a little less. In terms of accommodation as well, I would say pay attention when you guys actually go for accommodation, pay attention to the amount of weeks each accommodation is, because some of them are 30 weeks, such as tube. That means you have to actually pack your whole stuff and move away on Christmas and Easter. Just a little thing.
Fantastic, thank you so much. A really nice little overview there, and some really good top tips for accommodation as well. So yeah, really nice stuff. So yeah, we've had a few questions come in advance for tonight's session, so hopefully we can get through some of these before the end of this evening's session. If your specific wording doesn't quite come up, it's because I've tried to group them together into like a category of questions. We've had quite a few around accommodation specifically. But yeah, if you do have a really specific question that we probably can't quite answer in this forum tonight, please do use that function to chat with the current students or staff on our website, and absolutely we can get back to you that way as well. But of course, we will be keeping it sort of general in this forum tonight. The first question we do have, hopefully it might have answered in this evening's slides, but when do students know if they will be offered a place? In theory, the deadline for universities getting back to you is that May the 8th deadline for this year. So that will be when the students know if they've been offered a place or not. Quite often it should be earlier than this. We pride on ourselves at Royal Holloway for hopefully getting that turnaround with an offer if the student is getting that offer much quicker than that. But in theory, universities in the UK do have until that 8th of May deadline. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Well, another question a little bit around, I'd like to understand more about around applying for accommodation. Marcia, is that something you could talk about? Do you remember applying for accommodation when you started in your first year?
Roughly. So I remember what happened is they will email you saying, for example, on the 20th of May, they will open accommodation. And then once that day comes, there's like a portal where you have to log in. They'll give you all your details, and you have to put, regardless if you're not thinking of going to other accommodations, have to put all of them in order. I think right now we might have 12 or 11 different options of accommodation, and you have to put all of them in order. A little tip: do it like as soon as possible. I did mine on the day, and I got the one I wanted because it's a first serve, like first come their allocation, so do it on the day.
Yeah, really good top tip there around applying for accommodation, sort of more generally, not just to us at Royal Holloway as well. Caroline, would you have any sort of one top tip for an international student who might be entering accommodation for the first time as well?
I'd say think about what you've kind of mentioned, the different options. We have a huge range of accommodation here, and we're lucky to have catered halls, which not that many universities still have now. So yeah, our options, catered being that food is included and there. So think about it, but weigh up the money as well. So working out, is it worth having catered, paying that little bit extra? The same with an ensuite bathroom as well. And I think Marcia's point about the different terms as well, the kind of how the week-long bookings for most international students aren't going to want to pack up your things at kind of at Christmas and Easter. So make sure you kind of, if you're wanting to stay, choose the longer accommodation term.
Fantastic, thank you so much. That's really good stuff. We've also had a question coming around the medical facilities that we have available to students, that is available to students on campus. Just quickly on that, we do have a GP on campus directly, so that is something that our students are able to access. Our local A&E is in Chertsey, so not too far away as well from Egham, where we're based in Surrey. So they are able to access that. As I said, in terms of things like wellbeing, we do have that support available that I covered in the slides as well. And yeah, Marcia, have you ever sort of found yourself using any of the medical facilities or the services, sort of support services available to students as well?
Strangely enough, I actually used the GP today, so my throat is a bit rough. So then I had the shift today. It's so very convenient. You can literally just pop in because it's in Founders, so it's right there. And they're very helpful, like anywhere you would be.
Yeah, fantastic. I totally second that from my sort of first-hand student experience as well. It's really, really handy actually having that easily to access on our campus. So yeah, hopefully that makes it nice and easy for the students should they require it. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question there. We've had a few around scholarships about whether they can cover all of your funding or part of your funding. Again, hopefully you've seen some of the slides there. Essentially, it depends on the scholarship. So some will cover that full tuition fee cost. Some will just be able to provide that sort of extra financial support. Of course, some of that can go towards tuition fees. It could also be used as a sort of maintenance perspective for the student as well. Same thing sort of applies to bursaries. Generally, that is more towards the maintenance side of things for the student. But again, definitely the big distinction there is that if the student is eligible for it, they will receive the bursary. Obviously, on the other hand, those scholarships are competitive. So it is something that if they do want to apply for, particularly for those entering with us this September, I definitely recommend doing the research now, because hopefully that can be something that they can action in the next few months to see if they might be able to get some sort of that extra support through a scholarship. So yeah, hopefully that answers your questions around that there. I can see we've had some really good ones come in the question function as well. Give me just 1 second as I get them up. Will the university help students find a placement within a relevant industry? Yes, we do. So we have a really good careers network here at Royal Holloway. Marcia, is that something that you'd like to tell us a little bit more about?
I actually did a two-week placement during summer, my second year. So there was like a program where the careers actually helped me through the whole year. Like they would do a presentation, they helped me with my CV. There was like different top tips interviews as well, where like they did a presentation about it. But for a whole 1 year placement, they will help you like individually, but they won't find it for you because we are at the university, so we're supposed to be independent. With placements as well, I'll say bear in mind, because I was supposed to do one, but I end up not doing because it can be 1 year, because I didn't know what I wanted to do after my degree. So 1 year can be quite long if you're in like a 1 year employment where it might be in a company that you don't like. that could happen. Also with placements, because we're near London, a lot of them we're competing with other London students, so we can be quite competitive because essentially you're applying for like a 1-year job. So just bear that in mind. It can be competitive, but it definitely career service will help you throughout the whole process.
Yeah, really good advice there. The other thing again that I know about from my student experience here, essentially the Royal Holloway will never stand in your way if you do want to do that year in industry, a sandwich year, working a year in placement, for instance. If you want to find that yourself, as I said, you've sourced it yourself in the same way that a student might apply for a job. Royal Holloway will never stand in your way if the student wants to do that, which is a really nice guarantee to have. But of course, if you want to get matched up through our career service, it can be more competitive. But again, there are some really good opportunities available to students in there as well. Good stuff. Another question here, is there a parent support line specifically for those who have a child with disabilities? From my understanding, we do have a dedicated parent and supporters sort of contact page on our website, so I definitely advise getting in touch with that. We have a dedicated inbox available to our parents, so hopefully if I don't fully know the answer to your question, that's probably the best place to go, and hopefully you'll be able to find the answer for that. Again, as a parent or a supporter, you're more than welcome to get in touch with our disability and neurodiversity team as well. In the same way, if you're someone who's supporting a student who hasn't quite joined us yet, but you want to know that extra support available, or once they are a student here with us at Royal Holloway, again, as a parent or a supporter, you're more than welcome to get in touch with that support team as well. So yeah, hopefully that sort of pushes you in the right direction there. Caroline, this might be one for you. Is there anything available for healthcare for international students?
Yes, so as part of the visa, there is a healthcare charge. It's called the Student Visa and Immigration Health Surcharge. It is £776. You pay it at the time of processing your visa, and then that gives students access to the NHS, the National Health Service, the same as anyone else would get. Some students might want to look into extra healthcare insurance as well. I know that some do, but yeah, that does cover you for the basic healthcare. I'll put a link in the chat as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Is a student bank account necessary, or will a standard bank account be suitable? I presume that's in relation to accessing student finance. The answer is no. There's no compulsory thing for having to set up a student bank account. That's totally down to the student, to the supporter of the student. Pretty much, it's just an extra way of getting incentives from banks out there. Definitely worth looking what's available to students. I believe for this September, some banks are offering things like a 3-year or 4-year rail card as an incentive. Marcia, is that something that you've been able to access? I'm able to access student.
It's with the Santander. They do a 16-year-old to 25-year-old bank railway card. So even if after you graduate, you can still use it, and it's totally free. You get a lot of discounts, especially me, where I'm like from North and I come down when I go visit my parents. It's very useful with the railway prices these days. A lot of them, other ones will give you like discounts in certain restaurants as well. And some of them, they would give you like a big overdraft as well.
Fantastic, yeah. There's so much available for students in terms of bank accounts. So I wouldn't want to push anyone in one direction particularly, so it's definitely just worth going out there and doing your research. There are some really good websites that I shared with you on that last slide there just before. Definitely worth checking out, because there's some really good sort of comparison pages to see which bank might be best if you do want to set up a student bank account. As I said, it's not compulsory, just something to see if there's any extra incentives for you. Okay. This might be the final question we have time for, and it's related to student finance. Again, what if your student finance doesn't cover your accommodation cost? So yeah, if you are applying for the UK student finance system, and that is the case for you, it's basically an expectation from the government in terms of your household income that you are they're able to provide that sort of private owned funding to top it up on top of that maintenance loan. That is basically the expectation. The big thing for this September, the government have announced that the maintenance loan amounts will be going up in line with inflation. So hopefully that means for students applying for the system this September that there's a little bit eligible, they are eligible for that extra bit of support as well. And the other thing to point out, as I said, we are still eligible for that London weighting on top of the maintenance loan here at Royal Holloway, which I know, again, from my student experience, was something that was able to give me that extra bit of financial support as well. Especially where we are in Egham is probably not quite as expensive as it is in central London as well. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all we've got time for in terms of questions this evening. I want to leave you on a nice happy note though as well. So Marcia and Caroline, if I could ask your one top tip for how a parent or supporter can best support their student in that university process, what would be your one top tip? Let's start with Marcia from a student perspective.
From a student, I would say, are you asking like what a parent can do towards a student?
Yeah.
I would say definitely like support and help them plan, because when we applying for university, a lot of us are in our heads about A levels, and sometimes just saying, oh, have you checked this university? Just a little support, and sometimes like do some research for them, just help them like certain stuff that you found about certain universities that can be very helpful about their time.
Fantastic, thank you. And Caroline, have you got anything you'd like to add as well?
I think it's just being there for your students. Some students probably get their parents really involved and you know what's going on at every stage, and I can imagine some students do it all on their own, or they're with their school or friends and don't speak as much about it. And I think it's just letting them know that you're there, you're interested, and they will kind of come to you when they want to and when they're ready to share it as well. I know that some students find it stressful and the choices they have to make and not sure about the courses. So I just think it's being there and letting them know that you're there if they need anything.
Fantastic, absolutely. I think that's a really sort of a point to leave it on there as well. So yeah, a big thank you from myself and from Caroline and Marcia as well. If there is anything that you'd like to recap from this evening's session, just a reminder, it has been recorded. So I will be uploading it onto the Royal Holloway Schools Team YouTube page in the coming days. So if it is something that you want to go back and just have a look at, maybe have a look at one of those links that I've added to any of the slides, I definitely recommend catching up on that recording. But yes, that's all from us here at Royal Holloway this evening. Hopefully it's been a really useful session for you, and maybe you've gone away knowing something that you didn't quite know before, or it's just confirmed things that hopefully will sort of help you support your student in the best way possible as well. But yeah, a big thank you from myself, from Caroline and from Marcia as well, and hopefully you have a great rest of the evening. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.